We've learned it was slated for demolition. This is obviously not the way they expected this demolition to happen. With just a little pressure, the window breaks, but firefighters say this is not your best option. What jurors have to ask themselves tonight is whether or not they can trust a convicted triple murderer. See, credit cards do not fit very well in these red kettles. Nearly 6 months after it started, most drivers have adjusted and learned the rules. Shelley, this memorial marker back here, just one of the things that came after the November 6th tornado. Another, of course, a second look at safety. Warning when they went outside and saw their driveways littered with business cards. And they came with a message saying you've been visited by the Ku Klux Klan. How do you get a rig this big through traffic and then onto the bridge? Until then, neighbors are left to wonder what exactly happened in this home. Checking for loose parts, even vandalism. But I learned every 30 days, inspectors do a full, thorough investigation. You can see these paint marks on the ground. They only begin to tell the story of what actually happened last night. She says the penalties for ignoring school buses need to change. You're riding along as 8-year-old Casey Groves takes the bus home Monday afternoon. Watch and listen as Groves gets off the bus, and then the bus driver blows his horn at an oncoming car.
She still didn't stop, and she hit me. I flipped off the top of the car, broke my tibia and my fibia.
Groves returned home this morning with 2 screws in her leg.
They're in where my bone is.
And months of recovery in front of her. Grove says this was not the first time she'd seen a car ignore a bus stop sign. And what kind of punishment do you face if you do it? News 25 checked. We found running a bus stop sign will run you $125 in fines and court costs. Compare that with a public intoxication ticket, about $190. When you found out the fine for blowing past a bus, did that surprise you?
I was surprised, I was shocked, I was more mad than anything.
So mad that she's already talked with State Representative Suzanne Crouch and State Senator Vanita Becker about making a change. Krista Groves wants to see higher mandatory fines and license suspension.
We are extremely lucky. The next kid might not be that lucky.
It's just something that people just don't pay attention to.
Deputies are taking notice. They say while patrolling this week, it took only minutes to catch people ignoring buses. Despite limited resources, deputies say the extra efforts will be there.
Getting unmarked cars behind them, we do when we can. I wish we could do more about it, and we are going to do more about it.
The Uniontown City Cemetery is tucked away next to a Kentucky cornfield. The only sound to be heard, a pump jack off in the distance. But front and center, below the flagpole dedicated to veterans, now sits a gravestone for a dog that died 8 years ago. What's on the stone?
It says in memory of my dog.
What's your dog's name?
Can I say it? In memory of head.
If you can't fill in the blank, sorry, we can't either on television. We can tell you some are calling it disrespectful to the families in this cemetery. Ed Burnett has a grandmother who he says does not want to be buried in the same place as an animal.
I'm not really for certain if she's aware of the name. If she were to be aware of the name, she might wind up going back to the hospital. I could prefer something just a little bit better. Maybe Old Yeller.
Animals have rights.
But Hagen isn't out for suggestions. She tends to the grave and speaks about the uniquely named dog as if it were her child. In fact, everyone I spoke to today in the small town knew of the dog and its name well before its death.
Yeah,
Hagen says she didn't have the headstone made to be controversial, but to remember her loved one.
His name was Head, and I'm proud of it.
But the Uniontown mayor is already looking into it, and so are city attorneys. One issue, they say while the cemetery is public, the plot is owned by Hagen, and she says she's ready if it hits the fan.
It will have to be a legal matter before I remove it. You know, I will fight it to the T.
Say hello to the MySpace generation. This is a picture a local high schooler posted of himself. The picture said he had a close relationship with the female involved. And check this out. A 17-year-old female from another local high school posted this. Some would go as far as to call it pornographic. Her page was set to private, but the picture, as you can see, is still out there on the internet. And you can hardly call these pictures hard to find. A simple search for classmates, type in the school, pick a year, and there you have it. Access to a page, and often all of their friends. We can't stress enough, being young and having a MySpace page is not illegal. Embarrassing maybe, but not illegal. I learned schools can often have difficulties when it comes to controlling what gets put on the internet, But the growing rule of thumb is that if it disrupts the educational process, schools can act. But I also learned not all schools are limited by that rule. Steve Bagby is the Safety and Security Director for Evansville's Catholic Schools. Because the schools are private, the students are asked to read and sign off on the Code of Christian Conduct, meaning they can be reprimanded for their actions inside or outside of school and on the internet. Bagby is well educated on social networking.
The problem of it is the type of information, the posting of certain photographs and things that are said.
We brought along our laptop. These are just a few pictures I found scouring the internet this morning. And immediately, Bagby knew what he was looking at.
It's one of our kids.
We'll call this student Sarah. Someone else posted a picture of Sarah on their page. You have to wonder if she knows it's titled Sarah's Skank Photo. Another page now with this self-posted photo.
Obviously, she's shaking her boobs or she wants somebody to see the boobs.
Is there always a fear that the pictures are going to then end up on the internet?
That's exactly right. And they don't understand that.
It's not just photos that are a concern, it's information. This 17-year-old local student lists her first and last name, her grade, where she works, the make, model, and color of her vehicle, and her screen name. We showed the information to prosecutor Danita Farr.
Wow, red Toyota Corolla. That's right, she doesn't have her license plate number on there.
Farr is trained with both state and federal officials on MySpace. She says even teens with good intentions can inadvertently put too much information on their page.
Anybody can go to the mall and find her.
Scary.
Easy. Yeah, very scary.
Her advice to parents, make sure your child's page is set to private and
be careful what you post. Once you post something, you can't get it back down. Once you upload something onto the internet, you can't get it back.
When you stick something up on the World Wide Web, it's like renting out a billboard and putting that information up there. So there's no way you can have a right to privacy.
C.L. Lindsay uses humor to discuss the serious consequences of online activity.
Oh, that's too bad.
He's an attorney who runs a nonprofit group that helps college students who get in trouble online. It took him only minutes to find pictures of Kentucky Wesleyan students, mostly featuring underage drinking.
I like her. She likes beer.
He says the stakes only get higher as students get older.
Colleges can find you guilty based entirely on a picture you post online, so there can be big consequences.
It's those consequences that has someone like Bagby stressing his golden rule. If you wouldn't want your mother seeing a picture like this, don't put it on the internet.
How long do you have to pay for that indiscretion?
Forever.
Forever.